hops on you or some shit. He doesn't hop, like he just walks because
What the fuck? He doesn't even have healing perks. He doesn't
makes
have them.
absolute. Yes, I know. He does heals automatically. It makes no sense.
Number one, I have never in my life claimed that anti-gaming chair is a perfect anti-cheat. There's no such thing as a perfect anti-cheat. However, I can say with pretty much 100% certainty that anti-gaming chair's anti-cheat checks ban for more cheats, number one, ban cheats quicker, number two, and are harder to bypass, number three, than Watchdog checks. That anti-gaming chair is more efficient than Watchdog, which I think most people can agree with. Even people who are like really supportive of Hypixel can pretty much agree that it bans cheats faster. It's literally obvious. Was basically that I used a Hypixel styled bypass. I used Hypixel Fly on Varus anti-gaming chair, and then I obviously showed a video of someone using it on Hypixel. And I basically showed that obviously it does bypass Hypixel. It almost instantly bans on anti-gaming chair, and it spams my chat on Varus. Now the criticism is basically that because I used a Hypixel styled bypass, I can't really compare the anti-cheats. But that is, even though it's a valid point, it doesn't necessarily get to the point of my video. The point of my video is simply to give an example of a fly that worked on Hypixel's Watchdog, but then also flagged and instantly banned on anti-gaming chair. Now you might be like, oh, well, that's because the fly was just made for Hypixel, which is actually a valid criticism. It makes sense why a Watchdog-based fly would only work on Watch. Hypixel is a larger server, which causes more people to want to make bypasses for it, and therefore, because My Min Club is such a small server, no one wants to make bypasses. Number one, that's not true, because there's many developers who have actually made clients specifically for My Min Club. I mean, I'm not going to name them, but I can tell you right now that there's people who literally, I mean, they literally used to code themselves developing cheats specifically for anti-gaming chair. So that's just one example. Number two, there are a lot of different flies on hacked clients. Like obviously on hacked clients, there's different fly modes. There's different flies which are made for much smaller servers than My Min Club or anti-gaming chair. And you know, you have to at some point acknowledge that the reason why there are no anti-gaming chair flies is because it's much more difficult to bypass anti-gaming chair than it is all these other anti-cheats. I mean, if you have a random server with like another criticism or another response that some people will probably give to what I just said is, oh, well, all of the client developers just target Hypixel because obviously they make the most money off of it. Well, that doesn't really explain how the worst client, yes, the worst client from literally 2014, and a client which hasn't been updated in literally forever, at least the version that's used on Hypixel, the fly currently bypasses on Hypixel. Worst bypassing Hypixel, and there's literally a video of someone on the worst client bypassing Hypixel. That client has not been updated in forever, so like what's the excuse now? Well, they happened to target Hypixel back in 2014. No, you've had literally 5 years to be able to patch this fly. That fly will not work on anti-gaming chair. You know, that it's not just fly also. You have to also clearly better. For example, reach. There's lots of people that are able to use like at least like 3.5 blocks of reach, which automatically bans you on anti-gaming chair. Like, go and try to use 3.5 on anti. And one more final criticism I want to go over here is the whole idea that because Watchdog has to deal with multiple game modes and tons of players on the server, therefore I can't even compare the two. This is kind of valid in the sense that I can't directly say, like with an objective standard, okay, Watchdog is better or worse than anti-gaming chair. However, I can compare certain aspects of the anti-cheat that work on certain types of game modes that are very similar between My Min Club and Hypixel. For example, the duels game mode. The duels game mode on Hypixel is almost the same as the duels game mode on My Min Club. So if we have people flying around in the duels game mode, which there are, people using Kill R and 6-block reach in the duels game mode, which they are, and people b-hopping the duels game mode, then there's nothing to say that they couldn't just implement something that is similar to what they have on anti-gaming chair on the duels game mode itself. Just because there's all these game modes that Watchdog has to deal with doesn't mean that they can't just disable and enable checks depending on what game mode someone's in. I mean, that's just like 101. Like, that should just be like a very obvious thing for them to do. Just because they have a check in Watchdog doesn't mean it needs to be on every single server. So yeah, just comparing the duels game mode anti-cheat to the My Min Club anti-cheat is a completely, valid comparison. It's basically equivalent. So anything that you say past this, you have to literally be comparing it directly. So yeah, you can make the comparison, but you can only compare a very specific part of Hypixel's Watchdog to anti-gaming chair.